A lot of people struggle with this question and struggle with the idea of like, what is a trauma bond? What does it actually look like? How is it there in your life on a daily basis? A lot of times people don't realize that they're stuck in a trauma bond. They're stuck in a toxic relationship for a long period of time. And until they start to realize what they're actually in is a trauma bond, they'll never get out. I want you to kind of think through the idea that a trauma bond is this concept. A trauma bond is this idea where you're stuck with your abuser, you're stuck with your captor. Now, this could be along the lines of you looking like Stockholm Syndrome, of like being stuck with an abuser, like wanting this person, like thinking about this person, all different pieces about it. At the end of the day, you might be at a place where you've been with a narcissist and you're like, wait a second, like, I don't know. Am I in a trauma bond? Like, what is actually happening? You feel like you're at peace because the person isn't actively in your life, but it doesn't feel peaceful because you're still getting abused, because they're still coming back into your life, because you're still ruminating, you're still thinking about them. I want to talk to you today for a couple minutes, just going through and giving you some examples about the trauma bond, about what it actually looks like. Okay, I'm trying some new stuff today, so technology, bear with me. I think we got the audio stuff fixed yesterday. Hopefully, we got it fixed now. We'll kind of go and we'll kind of see what we got piece by piece. Okay, but wanted to give you this concept and this idea about the trauma bond. Okay, when we talk about a trauma bond, I wanted to put out here that when we talk trauma bond, the thing that's actually happening with the trauma bond, first off, is you're getting locked in this idea of hope and potential. Okay. Hope and potential that this other person is going to change, that this other person is going to get better, this other person is going to modify or do something different. When in reality, it's just all the same. It's the same exact thing that you've been going through day in, day out. Okay. You have this hope. Maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he'll change. Maybe there's hope that he's got it under control, that this is just a period of time. Like maybe it's just bad communication. Maybe it's just stress and he'll eventually figure this out. There's this hope and potential that kind of plays here for a little bit. Then you have the aspect of the cognitive dissonance. And with cognitive dissonance, the best way to be able to describe it, I'm awful at writing, so just ignore it. Best way to be able to describe it is I want you to kind of consider a person that's like standing here and has two opposing thoughts. Like, do I believe this or do I believe that? Like, do I believe this person's actions or their words? With cognitive dissonance, it leaves you in this like limbo land of like, I don't know what to actually believe. I don't know what to actually think in the moment. Like, do you guys resonate with this? Like, have you guys been at the spot where you're like, wait a second, like, I don't know what's actually true? Like, do I believe this thought or do I believe another one? This is what cognitive dissonance is. And put in the chat if you guys have experienced cognitive dissonance before, if you've seen this, where you're like, do I believe his words or do I believe his actions? Or it might be where you're stuck at the place where you're like, it's not even about believing him at this point, but it's more like, I don't know which decision to make. Like, I don't know, should I make this decision and have him yell at me? Or should I make this decision and get the silent treatment? Which one is it? A lot of those people are stuck in this idea of cognitive dissonance. They don't know which decision, which direction to be able to go. Because it's like this. It's like, do I believe the words or do I believe the actions? The other thing that makes up inside the trauma bond is intermittent reinforcement. When we talk through intermittent reinforcement, I want you to think of it being like this. It's the highs and the lows in the relationship. It's the thing that's like, oh, it was really good, and then it was really bad. There was great times, and then there was awful times. And it goes back and forth. Where you're like, I don't know what to actually believe, and you get used to it. Like you get stuck in this aspect of like, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe it was okay. You start to think, ruminate, and think like, "Oh, it wasn't that bad." And the highs becomes these great moments. The lows are like, it's just a little bit," and then it gets back up, okay? This is what happens over and over and over. As you start dealing with the trauma bond, you deal with the hope and potential, you deal with the cognitive dissonance, you deal with the intermittent reinforcement, all blends together to be the cocktail called the trauma bond. The cocktail that gets you stuck for a long period of time, that leaves you tied to another person, feeling almost like an addiction and like a pull going back to this person every single time. Have you experienced that? Are you living in that? Done a couple of videos and I've talked to people about there's another aspect that not everything is going to fix it, right? You might have already tried a bunch of things. You might have already tried going to therapy. You might have already tried working on different aspects to try to fix the problem, but it's still there. You still have the rumination, you still have the pull, you still have the feelings for this person. It's okay if you love them. We need to understand, like, there has to be a difference that's gonna come about from you understanding your value, your worth. Just because he treated you like shit doesn't mean that you are shit, but you'll feel that and you'll start to internalize that thinking that there's something wrong with you. Really quick, we've noticed a couple of things that do not fix the trauma bond. Number 1 is time. Time does not heal all wounds, especially when you're dealing with a trauma, narcissistic abuse, all this different stuff that ties it up. If you just go away from this person for a long period of time, it will not fix you. It will not get the trauma bond fixed at all. Okay. Also, no contact. No contact is helpful and is especially prevalent for you in a relationship because it gives you space, gives you capacity to heal, but it does not fix you. You still have to work. You still have to work on the healing and changing process. And then we've also done number 3, knowledge. Knowledge doesn't fix it either. We've seen people get stuck for a long period of time that know the words, that know the terminology, and at the end of the day, they're still stuck. Is that you today? Are you stuck in a trauma bond? We have an amazing program that helps with this called the Clarity Challenge. It walks you through a 45-day process to be able to break free, to be able to get to the place where you can actually break free from the toxic relationship. Okay? How we go through this and how we deal with the trauma bond. So someone just asked, how do you fix the trauma bond? How we focus on fixing the trauma bond is dealing with your triggers. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? Inside the aspect of the trauma bond, you've got this piece that every single day you're getting triggered. And so if we can go in and we can help you actually fix those triggers so that you're actually in control versus just letting this trigger play out, that's how we actually start to fix it. Okay. But we have to be able to go in and be able to work on dealing with the triggers, dealing with the thing that is actually keeping you stuck for a long period of time. How we actually do that is dealing with the triggers. Now, going into the triggers, there underneath the triggers is this concept, is this idea of there's a story that you're telling yourself. Okay. You start to get a trigger and you start to tell yourself a different version of reality. It wasn't that bad. And maybe it was me. All different pieces of it that start to make you wonder different aspects that aren't actually true. So we work to help you actually get below the surface and rewire your mindset. Change the mindset of what's going on. I see a question there. What are some examples of triggers? Great question. Examples of triggers can be literally anything. So let's think you're driving and you see his car, or you see a car that looks like his, and it puts you in an emotional state, fight, flight, or freeze. Like you're like, ah, and it like messes up with your day. It could be getting a simple text message and you get triggered. Like there's an emotional response that happens when you get a text message, even if it's not from him. There could be triggers of how someone talks, of how someone stands, of how someone interacts. There could be triggers when you listen to music and you get triggered back into that emotional state. There's all different types, and you're going to have everyone is inundated with triggers, especially if you've been with a toxic person. If you've been with a narcissist, you have tons of triggers. Until we actually work on solving the triggers and helping you actually work through and rewire that process, they're always going to control you. They're always going to function in a way that has a power over you. So we do a process called rewiring. Okay. Now you might have heard the aspect versus rewriting. Narcissists rewrite history. Okay. And when narcissists do this, what they do is they take something that was true and they convert it into something that was false. Well, you cheated on me. No, I didn't cheat on you. Like they switch it completely around. Okay. What was true is now false. Narcissist rewrites. This is how they gaslight you. That didn't happen. That didn't actually exist. Okay. And then you have us where we try to actually help you rewire. When we rewire, what we're doing is we're going back and we're working through the stuff that he put on you, that you started putting on you, all different types. We take the stuff that was false and then we work on converting it back to true. This looks the same for your limiting beliefs. This looks the same for the stories you tell yourself. This looks the same as the lies that you believed being with this toxic person. This is the whole goal that we're trying to do is help you rewire the mindset, change the mindset. This is what breaks the trauma bond, the truth, the facts of the situation. You can do that anytime today. You can send us a message. You can go to claritychallenge.net and we walk you through step-by-step process. It is a 45-day challenge. Some people the other day were like, why is it so long? Because it takes a process to be able to help you get to the place where you can see and understand the truth. I was talking to a client earlier that's in our Thriver community, and she was like, "Honestly, like, I wasn't ready for this. Like, it would have taken me a while. It took me a long process to step through this to understand that I wasn't the problem, to understand that it actually wasn't me because he was telling me that it was me. Like, to understand this, it took me a while to get to that spot. Now she's free. She's, like, thriving. It's amazing to see the progress. But I had to go through this process of rewiring. Okay. If you want to look at the Clarity Challenge, you can go to claritychallenge.net. Claritychallenge.net. If you want to talk to me one on one, interested in our Thriver community or working with me one on one, you can go to rawmotivations.com, rawmotivations.com or claritychallenge.net. What questions do you guys have? I know I'm on here just for a couple minutes. Want to be able to talk about the trauma bond specifically. Like, what questions do you guys have about the trauma bond? We can talk through it. We can answer some questions. We can illustrate it. Bunch of different things. Mess with some new technology so I can try to not just interact with you and talk to you, but also be able to show you. Like, hey, we talk about rewiring. Let me actually write it down so it's a little bit easier to understand versus just hearing me talk the whole time. Okay. So, drop any questions. What questions do you guys have specifically about the trauma bond? How do you actually break free? How to actually move forward? Like, where are you feeling stuck? Maybe it's in the rumination, maybe it's in the struggle of, like, not missing this person anymore, not thinking about this person anymore. They're just taking free real estate up in your mind. Like, where are you currently at in your healing journey? Okay? You need to learn how to fix the trauma. I had a brain bleed 5 years ago. He's taking my self-esteem, my dignity away. Never ever figure out when he's telling the truth. You know, I'm still in the marriage, so how do you deal with healing the trauma bond in the marriage in you? So it's very hard too. I would say it's close to impossible, but it's not impossible. We've had a couple people that have done it while they're in the marriage, and then they're able to make an exit strategy out. Because at the end of the day, the trauma bond is in here. The trauma bond is in your mind, and working through breaking that is a sequence of events. It comes back to the story you're telling yourself. Is breaking the trauma bond similar to cognitive behavior therapy? It would be similar. Yeah, there would be pieces of it that would be very similar. We dive into dealing with the story that you believe. A lot of people don't want to acknowledge or realize that the narcissist isn't the one controlling you. You're the one controlling you by the stories you believe, by the limiting mindset that gets placed upon you from him, but then also the ones that you start to believe inside yourself. Okay. How can I help the truth? Are we talking about the narcissist? Like, how can we help the narcissist be your truth? That's a big thing is if they're not willing to acknowledge where they currently are, there's not really a there's not really any pixie dust that I have. There's not really any formula to actually get people to understand. That's the hard piece. She knows the truth, but feels that she owns her time to owes her time to him. Okay, so she's trapped in the relationship with another person. I think that's what you're saying there. So with that, it's like going back, helping her understand her worth, but also understanding the toxicity that she's in. Might be initially just like sharing some videos of saying like, "Hey, check this out. He might look like this," or something like that. The trauma bonds only relate to narcissistic abuse. I'm still in a fog and still question myself whether it was a narcissist or if the relationship was just toxic. Louise, at the end of the day, what I tell you the short answer is it doesn't matter. Toxic is toxic, whether he was a narcissist or not. What matters is how did you actually demonstrate love, care, respect, honor, faithfulness to you. If you didn't, then you're still in an abusive relationship. Period. If you're in a fog and with the pieces of the trauma that we talked about, that typically is narcissistic abuse. Okay, but end up saying like, hey, like this person, it doesn't matter if he's a narcissist or not. It doesn't matter about the label. It matters about the demonstration. Okay. I've tried several times to go into no contact, but once I break it, after he reaches out, my walls get broken. I can't seem to get those walls up. The crystal part of it is the story that you're telling yourself because you're not seeing him for the truth of the situation that he's using and abusing you. And also, when you go no contact, it means there's no way for him to reach out. So there's no access to you. I'm trying to break the trauma bond by confronting the narcissist about their cheating with partners. If they still deny, can anything be said to get through to them? CJ, if they're not willing to actually be honest with what's actually going on, then nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to develop. Okay. My mom kept telling me I was acting narcissistic while she abused me. How can I fully believe I'm not the narcissist? Lauren, one of the things that I would suggest is it'd be easy to be able to talk through it. We can kind of walk through the 9 narcissistic traits, see what matches up, what doesn't to you specifically. But I'm guessing if you're in that spot, not that you're not a narcissist, but most narcissists don't. But that's why I normally say, like, hey, let's look at what might be toxic. Like, let's look what might be showing up in your life as the toxic traits. Let's start working on a plan to be able to work through those, to be able to deal with those. What did it take for me to see? So one of the things that helped was going into Wake Up Warrior Challenge. That was the thing that I did. It was a 30-day challenge that broke me down and helped expose the lies that I had for myself. Another thing was I was with a girl who had BPD and narcissistic traits, so I got to see myself in her as far as like how she was showing up. So that kind of opened up some stuff. Recording still denies the abuse, how to get him to realize everything he's done. You need to understand at that point with recordings and he's unwilling to recognize it, you need to leave the relationship. That you're dealing with someone who is not dealing with reality and is not willing to acknowledge the lies he's believing. So at that point, you need to leave. Like otherwise, you're just selling yourself short, thinking that there's actually something there when it's a dead end relationship because they're not willing to acknowledge the truth. If they can't acknowledge the truth, nothing's going to change, nothing's going to happen. It's going to get worse. I feel numb towards them, but can't help but send messages expressing my anger. How do I stop that? So it's why this like part of what we need to do is we need to focus on you understanding that all of that anger coming out needs to get out, but it's only fueling him more. It's only like making there be any type of response, reaction. It's only showing him that you still want him. It's not actually helping you heal. So we have to be able to transition that. So a piece of that is going to be journaling. We use a process inside of Thriver called stacking, where you actually go through, process your emotions, your feelings, talk about the story that you believe, help change that. Okay. The question: why are narcissists angry? Where does the anger come from? I know you mentioned shame, but what causes them to not want healing? It's kind of circular. So it's like the shame is there, and I don't want to admit that the shame is there. So I put up a front. I get angry if you see underneath it, so I rage back out. So you don't see the shame underneath. It's all running away from it. It's very circular in reason. It's kind of crazy how it actually works. How do you know if you haven't caught narcissistic traits after being narcissistic? It's hard being in healthy relationships. I feel like the toxic person now. So oftentimes people do. Often people do have narcissistic traits. I normally call them like narcissistic fleas, where like you're stuck and you have like the same things that are happening in the relationship. You're like, I look toxic now. What we focus on is like, let's talk. Let's actually start to work you through the process to be healthy in all aspects. And then once you're at the place where you're healthy, you're growing in that aspect, then it's like, okay, well, now what do we see? Now we don't see toxic traits in the other person. Now you're good. Awesome. You see toxic traits in the other person. Now you know it's not. Like it's kind of like a back and forth we work together. Mind if I actually admitted and explained almost everything like you explain things? Interesting. Then what happened? Was I abusive in telling the narcissist that his abuse caused my suicidal ideation? No, I wouldn't say that'd be abusive, but I would say that's a conversation and also a interaction with that person that needs to be cut off. That way we can actually focus on your growth and your healing. Because if we keep focusing on him, it's not going to help him heal. He went from being open to getting therapy to now he won't. He's afraid. How can I make him motivated again? A lot of times you can't at this point. He's unwilling to actually do it. A lot of times they're unwilling. Like I've seen narcissists move forward and then regress heavily. Unfortunately, there's not a smart way to be able to get them to go through it. You know, some people are like, give them unconditional love. You can do that, but you can't get to the place that equals and allows abuse. You have to be really careful about that. 30 Day Challenge was Wake Up Warrior. If you message me, I can send you a link for it. Been with my narcissist for 18 years, 14 years. He slapped me, but he won't get help. Won't leave the house for me. A lot of times in your situation, you have to leave the house. Narcissists will stay there, especially when it's comfortable. There's no reason for him to leave. Is there a way to get the narcissist to communicate and put aside the anger when dealing with the children? Not if they're not willing to deal with honesty piece and deal with like the other traits that are going on. The anger is an outpouring of all the other stuff that's going on underneath. Okay, like the shame, the guilt, all those things go through the cycle and produce the anger. Drug no contact, but as the communication keeps going, you recognize the behavior and actually preempting what he's going to say, something I didn't do before. Is the communication a bad idea? If you want to heal, then yeah, I would say it's a bad idea. If you want to be in that relationship or have that toxicity in your life, then keep doing it. Like I'm not judging you. I'm just saying like, hey, that's just the facts of it. You've been with a narcissist and then now you're trying to like communicate and be friends with him. It doesn't really work out that way. You're still like theirs. Okay, there's like an ownership piece been diagnosed with PTSD, but when I try to talk my feelings or experience, I become blank and can't think or feel anything. With a clarity challenge will help. I haven't seen anybody that's gone through that it doesn't help. Let's say if you go through the entire thing and you complete all the assignments and it doesn't help, then reach out and we'll talk. Like we'll figure out what it will look like. Also, can you do clarity challenge alongside counseling? Yes, you actually can. I actually had my therapist talk to me about this the other day. And for anyone, I've never even put this out there. So for anybody that's interested in doing the clarity challenge and you'd like your therapist to go in with you as well, or to go through the same modules, like reach out. I'm willing to do that for you guys. It was just a new thing that my therapist suggested. I was like, I've never even thought about that. But she was like, some people want their therapist to like do it alongside them or at least know what's going on. I don't know. If you guys are interested, you can sign up, you can message me and do it from that as well. Um, would narcissists be obsessed with their past relationships? If so, does that mean they long for that person? Doesn't mean they long for that person. Typically, it's about more of the control. Of, like, I'd rather have control of that person, have really good dominance over that person, doing things like that. Okay. How can we notify our narcissistic partners that they are indeed narcissistic without dealing with the backlash to get them open to questioning their behaviors and begin healing? So, CJ, can you talk to this person and have them admit that they're a liar or a cheater? You can't do if those basic things can't get met, then you can't. There's no point even talking about narcissism. Okay? Like if they can't acknowledge and take accountability for the small things, don't look at the big things. Okay, at all. Okay. Yeah, no, this is a brand new idea. Hadn't even thought about that, but my therapist suggested it. So if anybody wants to do that, like you can sign up, you can message me. More than willing to like bring your therapist, counselor, like into the clarity challenge with you if you want to share that with them. I don't know, kind of new, just random thought. This is actually the first time I've ever even said it out loud. Are you in therapy for the long haul? Like, is this never ending? The traits? Yes, I'm in therapy for the long haul. 2.5 years right now. Yeah, a little bit over 2.5. 3 years if you count the EMDR. 6 months before that. I still love him, but I don't want to. He breadcrumbs. How do I let go of the love, knowing that I deserve so much better, that the love keeps me fueled? We have a 2-year-old. So understand that, like, you can love that person, but it doesn't mean that you need to be with them. Like, you can still care about that person, but sometimes the best way to be able to love that person is to not be with them and actually focus on your growth and your healing. You also need to understand, like, when you love an abusive person, really it is also, like, not loving yourself because you're letting yourself go through that abusive habit, okay? How to break a trauma bond, especially if you have an 8-year-old with them. That's what we go over in the clarity challenge, but it goes back into like rewiring your mindset, helping you get below and figure out the triggers that are there to help actually get rid of them. Like we actually teach you a process that we use inside of Thriver called stacking. That actually is going like step by step, helping you deal with the emotions, switch to the logic, and then implant it so it helps you rewire the story that you're telling yourself. Why doesn't narcissist support his kids going to therapy? My stepson begged for help because he struggles controlling his emotions. His kid was like 14-year-old. The kid was therapy. The narcissist says no. Why? Probably because the narcissist doesn't want to admit that that might be because of him. And also, the narcissist doesn't really care about the kids. That's another piece too. Unless they're doing something or giving something to them, they don't really care. Okay, that's just a hard truth, hard reality. So, if you guys have any other questions about the trauma bond, or if you want to know about the clarity challenge, feel free to shoot me a message. It's claritychallenge.net. Okay, claritychallenge.net. There's a lot of people that are inside the clarity challenge that are with their current abuser because it helps you in the mindset. Okay. I also don't force people, even if you work with me one on one, I don't force people to go no contact. I'm like, hey, we're going to work on this. Like, we're going to work on getting you clear about you and then kind of going the same, then going forward, like from there. Like once you're clear and once you know what's actually true, what's right in your life, in your mind, then we move past that. Okay. All right. So, anyways, if you guys want to sign up for the Clarity Challenge and want to have your therapist or someone else join it with you, therapist or like counselor, message me. I'll take care of that. That's a brand new idea. Never thought about it. ClarityChallenge.net. If you want any more information, just shoot me a message. I got to jump off because you got an appointment coming up. Thanks so much. Y'all have a blessed day.